we provided another first with this case. And this is, we're going to be providing a separate gray water plumbing system in our community that will take the gray water, not from toilets, which is called black water, but gray water from showers, tubs, sinks, and washing machines, and then they filter it. And then it is put in an underground large holding or storage tank in the very expensive underground parking structure that we're doing. Then that gray water is metered out to a smart drip irrigation system. The result of all this, and I have this much detail on it because I want you to be aware how well we've thought this out and the specs that we've put and the effort we've put into this. This will result in 100% of our outdoor irrigation needs. And recall that the needs of our community in terms of water consumption, 70% of our water conservation in the city is used for outdoor purposes. So we eliminate that. We remove 100% of that from this proposed use. That reduces the demand for city water for this project by approximately 1 million gallons a year. Now, how does that compare to the existing uses that used to be in that building that's there today? Are we making it worse than what it was before? Are we actually improving the water issue with this proposed new development? This is something different, and that is that this will result in a 34% reduction in water use compared to the allowed uses that can go into that existing zoned building that is there today. Being different means being first sometimes. It means being a leader. And being different makes a difference. Among these differences from other projects you have seen or may see is this partnership with Chaparral High School, encouraged by the general plan. A second first, 10% of our units are voluntarily, no taxpayer subsidy, no taxpayer involvement, no taxpayer dollars involved. 10% of those units are set aside for workforce housing, teachers, staff, first responders. A third first for our city associated with this project, again, setting it apart, making it different. We eliminate this outdoor irrigation impact on our community. Now, being different, whether it's different than other projects you see or have seen, or whether we're different than other communities, being different makes a difference. We would respectfully request your recommendation for approval to the City Council. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
So being different means working outside of the code. And the PUD gives us the ability to codify this in the uniqueness of what's being presented. The challenge we have is that some of the stuff you're proposing are outside of our purview. And we've got a condition or a stipulation number 5 which references attachment number 6, which we don't have. Attachment number 6 is the contract with the city, the DDA, which we don't have the authority, obviously, to comment on, but it certainly is something we're making a recommendation on a stipulation without even seeing what is in that document. And it would help me if you could enumerate on just briefly the points of that DDA, so that we can understand, for instance, workforce housing with no giblet, no special incentives, the gray water processing system constructed to save millions of gallons of water. Is that in the deal? Short-term rentals, you did mention, thank you, is in the DDA, so that's helpful. The International Green Construction Code, which is voluntary, but when we make a recommendation to council and there's an entitlement, I'm also concerned about speculation or value engineering. So between the time that it comes to us presented with the pretty pictures and the promises, things can change. And I want to make sure that whatever's presented and promised is what gets built. So I understand that the stuff with Chaparral High School is outside of our purview. It's SUSD. I'm very familiar with community gardens. I've actually volunteered at the one at Echo Canyon. Love them, think they have a great asset to the community, but I've also seen them fall to the weeds in the wayside. when they're not funded. So I'd like to have an understanding if there is a contract in process with SUSD for promises to make sure that that is kept up with the funding that's needed. And if you could just address those things, it would help me in understanding what we can do in the PUD to codify some of these things. Thank you.
Sure. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioner, you've accurately kind of identified the jurisdictional constraints that the commission has. But let me see if I can go through it. And Eric is here from the city attorney's office, and I didn't draft the city or the development agreement. I have a lawyer in my office who's worked extensively with Mr. Anderson and Mr. Padilla and others on these, and we've done multiples of these over the last couple of years with the city. What may be helpful is to just quickly go through what I touted, and let's kind of see where we are on those. So the partnership with Chaparral High School, that is something that we are working with Chaparral to put in a contract in written form to give Chaparral the comfort they need that this is not, as you pointed out once before, value engineered out of the process. The workforce housing, in fact, is in the development agreement. Our office, I'm proud to say, along with the city and some council members who have been very supportive of this effort, we worked with council members to pioneer the first ever workforce housing case in Scottsdale, which occurred with this council about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it was a handful of units, just a handful of units. And when we did that, the city attorney's office, we all pioneered the language on how to make that happen, what the reporting requirements are to the city, how do you ensure that this happens? And the balancing act is that our state law says a city cannot require us to do these things. You can't be a party to requiring us to put this in a development agreement or in a STIP or anything else. So that's a violation of state law. However, if we voluntarily do it, we can put it in a development agreement. And we voluntarily did that the first time on the Miller project. So the template was set, and that was adopted and approved by the city council, I think on a 6-1 vote. I don't think the development agreement had anything to do with the one vote. So since that time, we've had we've perfected the language in the development agreement about how the reporting and making sure it's voluntary, the types of units that are available, 1s, 2s, and 3s. I know that. So all that's in there. The definition of workforce housing using the federal requirement, all that is in there. So as only lawyers can do, and I don't consider myself a real lawyer, but as the real lawyers can do, it's belt and suspenders. Eliminating the outdoor irrigation system, that is nowhere in writing. And the latest that we've had conversations with staff is that we need to work with the water department and kind of further vet this concept and work with the water department to make sure that what we're proposing is in concert with how they want to approach this. And our attitude is, great, let's use the benefit of the city's extensive knowledge on this. We're here to help. I know it sounds funny, but we're here to help the city with this. We're not here to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. So we don't know whether this will end up being the solution or something else. But we are working with the city, and we'll be working with the city between now and council to finalize that.
I think you covered all of it. I guess I would ask staff if it's possible to have a condition regarding the water conservation for gray water, just that there be ongoing, that the applicant would work with staff, the water utilities and building departments to some implementation towards what they've presented, not knowing what the final technological solution might be.
Vice Chair Young, Commissioner Kaminsky, at this point, I think I would recommend that just be a suggestion from the commission rather than a stipulation, because there's really nothing, there's not anything in the city code that addresses that issue. And I know there are some concerns, as Mr. Berry mentioned, regarding how that's going to work and stuff, and it's probably a little premature to have a set thing as far as that, because there is some concerns, as I understand, from the Water Resources Department about how that will work and stuff. So my recommendation would be if you want something, it would be a suggestion that be considered rather than an actual stipulation, so.
And do you have any recommendations for how we can address the SUSD contract in terms of a timing that we could have a copy of that provided for public record by the time they pull building permits, or?
Again, that's a contract that, as far as my knowledge, the city won't be a party to. I'm not aware that the city would be a party to that, unless I'm unaware.
Not a party to, but to have it on record that it was.
We could certainly suggest that be, but again, that's not really part of the zoning process, this commission, so I would make it a suggestion rather than a.
All right, thank you.
I'm sure, I will say that I'm sure the city council will ask, ask the same questions when this case goes to city council, and, the developer can get that done, hopefully.
Okay,